You keep saying yes when you mean no. You stay in relationships long after they've gone cold just to be the one who holds it all together. You're the friend who listens at 2 a.m., the partner who dixes everything, the family member everyone leans on. But when you're alone, a quiet panic rises. If no one needs me, do I even matter? That question, why do I need to be needed, isn't just emotional. It's a cry from your nervous system, your childhood wiring, and your deepest fear of being irrelevant. It's the silent epidemic behind so much loneliness, burnout, and one-sided relationships. You're not too kind. You're not just a giver. You're addicted to being needed, and it's not love. It's survival. Every year, over 180,000 people search, "Why do I need to be needed?" on Google. And TikTok? Hashtag people pleaser has 3.1 billion views. Codependency? 8.2 billion. That's not a trend. That's a generation quietly drowning in the belief that their worth is earned through usefulness. But here's what no viral therapist tells you. Being needed doesn't make you valuable. It makes you disposable. Because the moment someone no longer needs you, they walk away. And you're left wondering why love always feels conditional. This isn't about blame. This is about liberation. Because once you understand why you're wired this way, you can finally build relationships where you're wanted, not just used. At the heart of his pattern is a simple, devastating truth. You learned early that love equals usefulness. Maybe as a child, you were the good kid who never caused trouble because chaos meant neglect. Maybe you comforted a depressed parent and became their emotional anchor before you even knew how to tie your shoes. Maybe you discovered that the only time you felt seen was when you were solving someone else's problem. Your brain took note. If I take care of others, I'll be safe. If I'm essential, I won't be abandoned. If I'm needed, I won't be alone. And so you built an identity around service, not because you're selfless, but because it felt like the only way to belong. Psychologists call this fear-based caregiving. It looks like love, but it's fueled by anxiety. You don't help because you want to. You help because you're terrified of what happens if you don't. And your nervous system, it's hooked. Every time someone says, "I couldn't do this without you," your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that surges in addiction. You're not just giving, you're getting a hit. Being needed feels like oxygen because your brain thinks it is. But here's the cruel irony. The more you make yourself indispensable, the less people see you. They only see your function. You become the therapist friend, the fixer partner, the reliable sibling. But who are you when you're not needed? That's the void you're running from. Modern culture, it makes this worse. Social media rewards the helper identity. Post a quote like, "I'll always be here for you," and you get likes, hearts, "You're such a good friend" comments. Your brain learns, "I'm needed" equals social validation equals safety. Meanwhile, toxic productivity tells you that rest is laziness and boundaries are selfish. So you keep giving, even when you're empty. Even when it costs you your health, your time, your joy. And when someone finally stops needing you, it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like rejection. Because your entire sense of self was built on that role. This is the core of codependency. Not loving too much, but needing to be needed to feel real. You confuse care with control. You think, if I just do enough, they'll stay. But real connection doesn't thrive on utility. It thrives on mutual presence. The hardest truth. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Someone can need your advice, your money, your emotional labor, and still not want you. They can call you at 3 a.m. in crisis, but never ask how you are when the storm passes. Love says, "I choose you with or without your help." Need says, "I'll keep you as long as you're useful." And until you learn to separate the two, you'll keep attracting people who drain you and call it intimacy. So how do you break free? First, recognize the pattern without shame. This isn't weakness. It's a brilliant survival strategy your younger self created to stay safe. Thank that part of you, then gently outgrow it. Second, practice presence without fixing. Next time a friend shares a problem, try saying, "That sounds really hard." I'm here with you. Don't jump to solutions. Just be. You'll feel anxious at first. That's your addiction craving a hit. But in that discomfort, you're rewiring your brain. I am enough even when I'm not useful. Third, create identity outside of service. Ask yourself, who am I when no one needs me? Write down 10 answers that have nothing to do with helping others. Maybe you're the one who loves old jazz, who gardens on Sundays, who's learning Spanish just for fun, who laughs at terrible puns. Rebuild your sense of self on being, not doing. Fourth, set boundaries that feel like betrayal at first. Say no to a request, even if it's small. Let someone solve their own problem. Feel the panic rise and breathe through it. That panic isn't danger, it's liberation knocking. Finally, seek relationships that want you, not just your utility. Notice, do they ask about your day? Do they show up when you're struggling? Do they enjoy your presence even when you have nothing to give? Real connection doesn't require you to be essential. It only asks you to be authentic. This journey isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming whole, because you were never meant to be a tool for others' comfort. You were meant to be a full human, flawed, peaceful, and deeply worthy even in your stillness. And the most radical act of self-love isn't giving more. It's allowing yourself to be wanted for who you are, not what you do. So the next time that voice whispers, "If no one needs me, I'm nothing," answer it with truth. I am not my usefulness. I am not my service. I am here, and that is enough, because you don't need to be needed to matter. You matter because you exist. And that is the foundation of real love for others and for yourself. You've realized it now. You're not just helpful, you're hooked on being needed. And that awareness, it's both liberating and terrifying, because now you face the quiet question no one talks about. If I stop being everyone's anchor, who am I? That void, the space where your usefulness used to live, feels like freefall. Your hands are empty. Your phone is quiet. No one's texting you in crisis. And instead of peace, you feel invisible. This is the hidden crisis of recovery from need addiction. It's not the giving that's hard to stop. It's the identity collapse that follows. You spent years building your sense of self on a symbol equation. I am needed equals I am worthy. Now you're trying to delete that equation, but you haven't written a new one yet. So your nervous system panics. It screams, go back, fix someone, be essential again. But here's what you must understand. The void isn't emptiness. It's potential, and learning to sit in it without filling it with other people's problems is where true selfhood begins. This pattern didn't start in adulthood. It was wired into you long before you knew what therapy or codependency meant. Maybe you were the child who soothed your raging parent. Maybe you became the easy kid, so your overwhelmed caregiver wouldn't leave. Maybe your love was conditional. I'll hug you if you're quiet. I'm proud of you when you help your sister. Your young brain made a survival pact. If I make myself useful, I'll be safe. If I disappear into service, I'll be loved. And that pact became your operating system. But here's the devastating truth about that system. It turns relationships into transactions. You don't connect, you calculate. If I listen to her for an hour, she'll like me. If I solve his problem, he'll stay. If I'm always available, they won't abandon me. You're not building intimacy. You're building insurance policies against loneliness. And the irony? It creates the very isolation you fear, because when people only know you as the helper, they never meet the real you, the one who's tired, messy, uncertain, and human. They don't leave because you stopped helping. They leave because they never knew you to begin with. So how do you rebuild a self that exists beyond service? Start by grieving the role you're leaving behind. That reliable one identity protected you for years. Thank it, honor it, then say, I don't need you to survive anymore. This isn't betrayal, it's evolution. Next, create a worth inventory that has nothing to do with usefulness. Every day for 1 week, write down 3 things that prove your value without helping anyone. Examples. I noticed the way the sunlight hit the trees this morning. I made myself tea when I was tired. I sat with my sadness instead of distracting myself. These aren't grand acts, they're quiet declarations. I exist, and that is enough. Your brain will resist. It'll say, that's not real value. Real value is doing. But that's the old programming speaking. True worth isn't earned, it's inherent. Now let's talk about the hardest part, watching relationships shift or end when you stop being needed. You set a boundary. You say no. You don't respond to a crisis text for 12 hours. And suddenly, someone you thought was a friend says you've changed or disappears altogether. It feels like confirmation. See, I'm only lovable when I'm useful. But the truth is far more freeing. They didn't love you, they loved your function. Real connection doesn't vanish when you stop performing. It deepens when you show up as your full self, tired, imperfect, and unconditionally present. This is where mutuality begins. Mutuality isn't I help you, you help me. It's I see you, you see me, and we choose each other, not because we're useful, but because we're real. Ask yourself about every relationship. Do they want my presence or just my labor? Do they celebrate my joy or only call me in their pain? Can we sit in silence together, or does it always have to be productive? If the answer leans toward utility, it's not a failure. It's clarity. You're not losing love, you're losing illusion. Now let's address the fear underneath all this. If I'm not needed, I'll be alone. That fear comes from the deep, ancient place, a time when being cast out from the tribe meant death. Your nervous system still believes alone equals unsafe. But here's the reframe that changes everything. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of self. You can be surrounded by people and feel utterly alone because you're not there. You're too busy managing their emotions to inhabit your own life. True solitude, the kind that heals, is different. It's sitting with yourself without needing to fix, perform, or prove. It's allowing your inner world to speak without drowning it in other people's noise. Start small. Sit in silence for 5 minutes without checking your phone. Eat a meal alone. No podcast, no scrolling. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? And actually listen. At first, it will feel like withdrawal. Your body may shake. Your mind may race. That's your addiction detoxing. Breathe through it. Stay. Because on the other side of that discomfort is self-trust, the quiet certainty that you can be with yourself and not disappear. And what about love? Can you be in a romantic relationship without being the strong one, the fixer, the emotional backbone? Yes, but it requires radical honesty. Tell your partner, I used to show love by solving your problems, but I'm learning that real love is being with you in the mess, not cleaning it up. So if I don't jump to fix things, it's not because I don't care. It's because I trust you and us enough to let it be. This terrifies people at first. They're used to your rescue. But if they lean in instead of pulling away, that's your person. And if they leave because you're no longer their emotional crutch, they were never your person to begin with. Finally, let's reclaim the word selfish. Society calls it selfish to prioritize yourself. But what's truly selfish? Staying in a relationship where you're drained so you can feel needed? Saying yes when you mean no so others won't be upset? Abandoning yourself daily to please ghosts from your past? That's not selflessness, that's self-erasure. True selflessness flows from fullness, not emptiness. You can't pour from an empty cup, but more importantly, you were never meant to be a cup for others. You were meant to be a whole person. So be selfish enough to rest when you're tired. Say no without apology. Choose joy over obligation. Protect your energy like the sacred resource that it is. Because the world doesn't need more martyrs. It needs whole humans who've learned to fill their own wells so they can connect from abundance, not lack. This journey isn't linear. Some days you'll slip back into old patterns. You'll overgive. You'll rescue. You'll panic when someone doesn't need you. That's okay. Healing isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Every time you catch yourself reaching for usefulness to feel real, pause, place a hand on your heart and say, I am here. I am enough. I don't need to earn my existence. And slowly, your nervous system will believe it. You were never meant to be a tool for other people's comfort. You were meant to be a living, breathing, imperfect miracle, worthy simply because you are. So let go of the need to be needed. Step into the quiet and discover the revolutionary truth. You belong, not because of what you do, but because of who you are.
And in that belonging, you'll find a love that doesn't demand your utility, but cherishes your presence. That's not just healing. That's home.